Most people think this is about money.
The toll rates are starting at $1 per barrel of oil.
Fee on tankers, a bargaining chip, a way for Iran to squeeze cash out of oil traffic. But that may be the wrong framework, because the real issue is not the toll. The real issue is who gets to decide who passes, who pays, and who controls the most important choke point in the world economy. And if that is true, then Washington does not have a clean answer. It has a trap. Here is the surface story. Iran says ships moving through Hormuz should pay for the costs of security, environmental protection, insurance, and risk. That sounds like a service fee, almost like a harbor charge, but Hormuz is not a normal harbor. It is the narrow gate between the Persian Gulf and the open ocean. It is the artery for Gulf oil. It is a pressure point for Asia. It is a lever on Europe. And it is a test of whether American power can still keep the global commons open. So the question is not, can Iran charge a toll? The real question is, can Iran force the world to treat it as the gatekeeper? That is where the story gets much bigger. The common belief is simple. Iran is under pressure. Iran needs revenue. Iran wants sanctions relief. So Iran is using Hormuz as a way to get money. That explanation is not completely wrong. Money matters, oil matters, revenue matters, but it is incomplete. Because states in a crisis do not only seek money, they seek position, they seek security, they seek leverage, they seek a better balance of power after the crisis than they had before it. And that is the key. A toll is not just a price. A toll is a claim of authority. Think about what happens when a ship pays. It is not only transferring dollars, it is accepting a rule. It is accepting that someone has the right to stand at the gate. Someone has the right to inspect. Someone has the right to approve the route. Someone has the right to say, you may pass. That is why this is not just an economic dispute. It is a sovereignty dispute. It is a strategic dispute. And it is a balance of power dispute. Because if Iran can make the toll normal, then Iran has done something far more important than collect money. It has changed the rules of the Gulf. And this is the part most coverage misses. Closing Hormuz is dramatic. It is obvious. It creates panic. But it also creates a problem for Iran. If Iran completely closes the strait, it hurts everyone. It invites retaliation. It risks turning neutral states against Tehran, and it makes Iran look like the actor that broke the world economy. But a toll road is different. A toll road keeps the strait open. It keeps ships moving. It gives Iran leverage without forcing Iran to trigger the most extreme version of escalation. That is the genius of the move. It is not closure. It is conditional access. And conditional access is power. If you comply, you pass. If you refuse, your risk goes up. If you use the approved lane, you may be protected. If you challenge the system, your insurance rises, your route slows. Your cargo waits, your government gets a phone call from shipping companies, energy traders, insurers, and allies. This is how a narrow stretch of water becomes a political machine. Not because every ship is stopped, but because every ship has to calculate risk. And risk is where Iran's leverage begins. Now, Washington has a problem because the American answer to Hormuz has always been simple. The strait must stay open. No hostile power can control global energy traffic. No regional state gets to decide who uses the sea lane. That is the logic behind decades of U.S. presence in the Gulf, bases, carriers, Fifth Fleet patrols, freedom of navigation. The entire American posture says one thing: the Gulf is not Iran's private waterway, but Iran's toll strategy challenges that without necessarily giving Washington an easy military target. That is why the next move is so dangerous. If Iran fires missiles, Washington can strike missile sites. If Iran mines the strait, Washington can clear mines. If Iran seizes a tanker, Washington can respond with naval force. But what if Iran does something more ambiguous? What if it says, we are not closing the strait. We are regulating traffic. We are charging for security. We are managing risk. We are protecting the environment. We are creating insurance mechanisms. That language matters because it turns coercion into administration. It turns a military challenge into a legal and political argument. And it forces Washington to answer a harder question. Is America ready to fight a war over a fee? That question sounds absurd, but it is exactly how escalation traps work. The first issue looks small: a toll, a route, a technical mechanism, a 60-day window, a dispute over wording. But underneath that small issue is a much larger question. Who controls the next regional order? That is why a fee can become a crisis, because the fee is not the thing. The fee is the symbol of the thing. It is the visible sign of who won the last round and who gets to define the next one. And this is where the Robert Pape style framework becomes useful. Do not start with the headline, start with the mechanism. The headline says Iran wants tolls. The mechanism says Iran is trying to convert battlefield survival into political authority. That is the leap. If Iran survived the bombing, survived the pressure, and still holds leverage over Hormuz, then Iran may believe it has moved into its period of maximum bargaining power. Not because it defeated America in a traditional war, but because America cannot easily convert tactical force into strategic control. That is the trap. Washington may have the stronger military. It may have more carriers, more aircraft, more bases, more global reach, but military superiority does not automatically solve a political problem. You can hit targets, you can destroy launchers, you can punish assets, but none of that automatically answers the deeper question: who controls the terms of passage? And if the answer is still unclear after the bombing, then the weaker state may not feel weak. It may feel emboldened. That is the strange logic of the escalation trap. The stronger side uses force, but the weaker side gains leverage. This is not because Iran is invincible. It is not because Iran has no vulnerabilities. Iran has major weaknesses. Its economy is pressured. Its military is vulnerable to American and Israeli strikes. Its regional partners can be hit. Its leadership can be targeted. But the key question is not whether Iran can be hurt. Of course it can. The key question is whether hurting Iran makes Iran surrender the leverage that matters most. And right now, the leverage that matters most is not a city. It is not one missile base. It is not one speech. It is Hormuz. That is why the toll road idea matters. If Iran can make every tanker operator, every insurer, every Gulf monarchy, every Asian importer, and every Western government think about Tehran before moving energy through the strait, then Iran has changed the hierarchy of the region. It has made itself unavoidable. That is what regional powers want. They want others to plan around them. They want neighbors to fear ignoring them. They want outsiders to negotiate with them. And they want every crisis to prove that their consent is necessary. That is not a money strategy. That is a power strategy. Now, look at it from Washington's side. The U.S. has three bad options. Option one, accept the toll structure in some form. But that risks making Iran look like the new manager of Hormuz. Option two, reject the tolls and force ships through without paying. But that risks attacks, seizures, drone strikes, insurance spikes, and pressure from allies. Option three, escalate militarily. But that risks widening the conflict and proving Iran's point that the strait is now a battlefield. None of those options is clean. That is why the title says Washington has no easy answer. The problem is not that America has no power. America has enormous power. The problem is that each use of power creates a new political cost. If Washington backs down, Iran gains status. If Washington escalates, oil markets react. If Washington tries to split the difference, Iran may test the line again. That is the trap. A trap is not a situation where you have no moves. A trap trap is a situation where every move helps confirm the opponent's framework. Iran wants the world to see Hormuz as a place where American power has limits. Washington wants the world to see Hormuz as a place where American power still guarantees access. Both cannot be true forever. To understand why, go back to the history of choke points. Choke points are never just geography. They are political instruments. Suez was not just a canal, it was a symbol of empire, sovereignty, and who controlled the route between Europe and Asia. The Turkish Straits were not just waterways. They became part of the balance between Russia, Europe, and the Mediterranean. The Panama Canal was not just infrastructure. It was a statement about American power in the Western Hemisphere. Hormuz is the same kind of place. It is a strip of water where maps become power. And this is why Iran does not need to win a naval war in the American sense. It does not need to defeat the U.S. Navy ship for ship. It does not need to sink carriers. It does not need to control every inch of the Gulf at every moment. It needs something more limited. It needs to make safe passage feel conditional. It needs to make every ship ask, do we have approval? Will insurance cover this? Will the route hold? Will Iran let this pass? That is enough to create leverage, because modern economies do not only fear destruction, they fear uncertainty. Uncertainty is expensive. Insurance prices move before ships sink. Oil prices move before shortages appear. Companies delay before governments declare crisis. And allies pressure Washington before voters fully understand what happened. That is the power of a choke point. It converts small acts into big consequences. A drone does not have to destroy the global economy. It only has to make the next 1,000 ships recalculate. A warning does not have to close the strait. It only has to make insurers ask a harder question. A toll does not have to bankrupt anyone. It only has to make everyone acknowledge who controls risk. This is also why the legal argument matters, but does not settle the issue. Washington can say Hormuz is an international passage. It can say transit rights cannot be held hostage by one coastal state. It can say unilateral tolls violate the basic principle of free navigation. That argument is powerful, but Iran can answer in a different language: security, territorial waters, environmental costs, insurance mechanisms, regional sovereignty. And once the dispute shifts from law to enforcement, the real question becomes, who can make their interpretation real on the water? That is balance of power, not in theory, in practice. Now, the first tripwire. Watch whether Iran tries to collect tolls after the temporary window ends, not just whether officials talk about it. Talk is cheap. Watch behavior. Are ships asked to register? Are routes approved or denied? Are tankers treated differently depending on flag, cargo, destination, or political alignment? That would be the first signal that the toll road is becoming a system. And if it becomes a system, it becomes harder to reverse, because the first payment is not the end of the crisis, it is the beginning of normalization. Second tripwire: watch the insurers and shipping companies. Governments speak in public. Markets reveal pressure quietly. If war risk premiums rise, if vessels delay, if shippers avoid certain lanes, if cargo owners demand government guarantees, that tells you the toll strategy is working, not because Iran has closed the strait, because Iran has made the strait feel politically managed. That is the difference. A closed strait is a crisis. A managed strait is a new order, and Iran may prefer the second. Third tripwire: watch American posture, not the speeches, the posture. Are more U.S. forces moving into the region or leaving? Are escorts increasing? Are Gulf allies asking for guarantees? Are strikes becoming more frequent? Are negotiations focused on nuclear issues, or are they stuck on maritime control? That tells you whether Washington is regaining leverage or reacting to Iran's leverage, because in an escalation trap, leaders often say they are in control. But the real evidence is movement: ships, bases, insurance, routes, alliances. That is where the truth shows up. If this framework is correct, the next stage will not look like a clean peace deal. It will look like a grinding negotiation over rules rules, who can inspect, who can escort, who can charge, who can guarantee safety, who can punish violations, and who gets blamed if energy markets shake again. That is why this may not end with one dramatic announcement. It may become a slow contest, a toll dispute, a shipping dispute, a legal dispute, a military dispute, a regional order dispute, all layered on top of each other. And this is why Washington has no easy answer. If it treats the tolls as a small issue, Iran may convert them into precedent. If it treats the tolls as a major issue, Iran may force Washington to escalate over something that looks small to the public. If it negotiates, Iran gains recognition. If it refuses to negotiate, the strait stays unstable. If it threatens force, Iran can say America is militarizing the Gulf again. If it holds back, Iran can say America blinked. Now, that is the shape of the trap. The deeper danger is not that Iran earns a few $billion. The deeper danger is that Iran teaches the region a new lesson. That lesson would be America can strike, but Iran can still tax the artery. America can threaten, but Iran can still shape the risk. America can deploy, but Iran can still make every ship think twice. That is a major shift, because great powers are judged not only by what they can destroy, they are judged by what they can guarantee. And for decades, America's promise in the Gulf was simple. Energy moves, the sea lanes stay open, the system holds. Iran's toll road strategy challenges that promise. It says the system does not hold unless Iran agrees. That is why this is not just about Hormuz. It is about whether the Gulf still has an American security order, or whether a new order is being negotiated under pressure, one tanker at a time, one toll demand at a time, one insurance calculation at a time. And once you see that, the crisis looks different. The question is no longer, will Iran close Hormuz? The better question is, can Iran keep Hormuz open, but on its terms? That is the move. Not closure, control, not chaos, leverage, not a fee, recognition. And if Iran can turn a choke point into a toll road, then Washington faces the hardest kind of strategic problem. Not an enemy it cannot hit, but an enemy it can hit without necessarily solving the problem. That is the essence of the escalation trap. Tactical power does not always produce strategic control. Sometimes it produces the opposite. So the final insight is this: Hormuz is not just a waterway, it is a test of Iran's ambition, a test of America's guarantees, a test of whether allies still believe Washington controls the Gulf, and a test of whether the next regional order will be written by military dominance, legal principle, or coercive leverage. Most analysts will keep asking whether the toll is legal, or whether the fee is too high, or whether ships will pay. Those questions matter, but they are not the deepest question. The deepest question is whether Iran has found a way to make the world pay attention before it passes through the gate. Because once a state controls the gate, it does not need to close it. It only needs to remind everyone who holds the key. The headlines changed, the logic did not.